My name is Sidónio Tembe, and in this video, I'll be presenting some key elements, key aspects concerning my project research work in my Master in Business Administration with specialization in data science. Concerning the key findings of my research work, I could find out that the return on assets, which is one of the indicators of banks' profitability, it varies more sectionally between the banks than over the time, meaning that among the banks, there was a greater difference in return on banks' assets at a given time more than over the time, while the return on equity and net interest margin, which are other two important indicators of banks' profitability, they varied more by each bank over the time more than between the banks at a given time. Another key find that I could conclude is that the variable firm size, which is one of the explanatory variables of my regression models, was not statistically significant. And in this context, the firm size or the measure of the bank could not be considered as a determinant of the bank's profitability, considering mainly the return on assets and the net financial margin. However, it is at some extent considered as determinant for the return on equity. Another key finding is that the variables efficiency and solvency of the banks have a significant impact on all indicators of banks' profitability. However, the financial leverage is only statistically significant on return on assets and return on equity. Therefore, keeping all the other factors constants, it was possible to conclude that an increase in solvency by 1% could lead to an increase in return on assets by 0.3% and also could lead on an increase on the return on equity by 7.5%, and furthermore could lead on an increase in net interest margin by 0.2%. Those are the key findings of my research work. Concerning the strong and weak areas or weak aspects of my project work, well, beginning with the strong aspects. The strong aspects of my research work are the fact that the research is data-driven research. And the outcomes of being a data-driven research, the outcome can be more reliable, considering that the data that the outcomes are based on the data and are based on legal or formal data, secondary data produced by the reports of the banks. So the recommendations that come out from this research, they are worth to be considered and to be applied in the decision-making process by the managers of the banks. So this research brings out real recommendations and a real world and real applicable recommendations for the bank's operations in a daily basis and even to be applied in practice be applied practically in order to increase the bank's profitability. Additionally, coming to weak aspects, the weak aspects of my research work particularly, it has to deal with the fact that the research does not consider qualitative aspects or qualitative variables in the process of analysis, which also may limit the outcomes because the other qualitative variables, the other qualitative aspects are not considered in the research. The research is much more quantitative based. So this is one of the weaknesses of the research. Referring to the value which my research works will bring to others in the area of my research work or the area of my field or in my field, one of the main value is the fact that my research is one of the first one which relates on regression methods to analyze the determinants of banks' profitability in Mozambique using a panel data models. And this also brings out a contribution considering that is the first research work which create a panel database for banks profitability analysis. So this is one of the value which brings out. So the database used for this analysis, it has been created by me as the researcher. So this is one of the contributors, meaning that other researchers futurely they can rely on my database in order to proceed with their research, and in order to take up, even bank managers can rely on my database in order to take other future decisions, important decisions for the banking sector. So this is one of the key contributions. Not only this research gives a field for future regression analysis, such as like this one. So other researchers can undertake regression analysis based on the data and also inspired in this recession work. So this is one of the value of this recession work. Now, when it comes to the application of the outcomes of the project work at my workplace or my community, well, it brings out many aspects, many applicable aspects. One of them is the fact that with this recession work, I'm able to advise the bank's managers in Mozambique to adopt best practice in terms of technology, in terms of management structure, in order to match their size and therefore achieve economies of scale. Because I could conclude that the size of the firm or the size of the bank itself does not determine the profitability of the bank. So I could give this advice in order to the banks have achieved economies of scale. Furthermore, I can also advise the usefulness or the applicability at my workplace is the fact that I'm also able to advise the bank manager to a maximum possible reduction of operation costs, considering that the efficiency ratio, which is one of the variables of my regression models, has a significant negative impact on banks' profitability. Additionally, the banks or the bank's manager should improve their solvency ratio by increasing their own funds, considering that the solvency variable has a positive and significant impact on the bank's profitability. I believe those two aspects are useful to my workplace and to my community. Well, referring to the key challenges that I faced while carrying out the research work, the lack of aggregated database referring to the main analysis variable, which forced me to create a database from scratch. The creation of the database was guided by the need to obtain data associated with explanatory variables of the regression models. And the creation of database was based on the financial reports of each of the banks under study, in which the data had to copy one by one from the reports in PDF available in the website of the banks. This limitation had an impact on the time as well as on the time series that was limited to the data available in the bank's financial reports. Well, another challenge that I faced which is at some extent linked to the first, has to do with the time series. That was not possible to extend the volume or the number of observations due to the insufficient data. However, in order to cover this limitation, I combined cross-sectional and time series data, organizing the data into a panel, which allowed me to increase the number of observations from 16 to 64. In this way, I have undertaken the research using a panel data models, a panel data analysis. This has helped me to overcome my main challenges. Thank you.